Welcome to the Boldest You podcast. I'm your host, Carrie, and I'm thrilled to bring you real conversations with bold women and men. In this podcast, we dive deep into their stories, exploring what drives their courage, shapes their vision, and fuels their desire to leave a lasting impact. These are honest, vulnerable, and inspiring moments that celebrate what it means to be bold. Let's discover their legacies together. Our bold woman of the hour is Taylor Jackson. Taylor is a software sales professional based in San Diego, California, where she's enjoying married life with her husband and their new puppy. A true California native, Taylor was born in Salinas near Monterey, went to college in San Diego, and then spent a decade in the Bay Area building her career, where she also met her husband. Shortly after they got married, they made their way back to San Diego for his job, bringing her California journey full circle. Professionally, Taylor has spent the last 4 years in her current role in software sales after launching her career. While she's now leading presentations and thriving in a people-facing role, that path wasn't always obvious. Growing up, Taylor was the shy, studious bookworm who struggled with insecurity, so much so that her younger self would never have believed that she'd end up in sales. Today, she's proud of how far she's come and the confidence she's built along the way. I invite you to listen to our conversation regarding building confidence, relationships, and so much more. I do want to give a trigger warning that at the beginning of Taylor's story, she shares about an eating disorder. If this is a topic that is sensitive to you, I encourage you to skip the introduction and move to the middle of the episode. Let's get into it. Hi, Taylor. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Hi, Carrie. Thanks so much for having me. I am so excited too.
I know. I feel like this has been a long time coming. We had a conversation a couple months ago already.
Like pre-holidays, and which already feels like 6 years ago. I don't know
Exactly. It's like time is flying by.
It really is.
All right, Taylor, tell us about a time when you've had to be bold.
So first off, I want to say I really appreciate this prompt / question because it's kind of prompted me to do a lot of reflection to understand, okay, looking back at my entire life, where are times where I've been bold, and what are some of those situations or instances that I feel really proud that I was bold. So even though I was out, as I was reflecting, I could find or pinpoint a few moments over my life where oh wow, okay, this was a bold move or a bold decision or a bold statement that I had. But one that I feel is worth talking about is a time where I had to ask for help with a pretty big life situation. And I wanted to talk about it because I feel sometimes when it comes to asking for help, it's seen as a sign of weakness, but I feel it is a sign of strength. And so I have decided to talk about that today. But before I say what it actually is, I kind of want to set a little bit of context. So I know I'm doing a little bit differently maybe than what
I love
you're used to, but it'll make sense. So when I was in high school, and by the way, it has to do with college. So setting the scene, when I was in high school, I was someone who was very shy. It was someone with pretty low self-esteem, not a lot of confidence. Probably pretty similar to maybe how a lot of honestly girls kind of feel. You're figuring out your place in the world and figuring out what you want to be, what you want to do. But during this time in high school, I was very much a high achiever. So even though didn't have a lot of identity or knowing who I was, I still worked really hard. Spent my entire time in high school only focused on getting good grades to get into college. That was I think where my identity was stored, because I didn't really know anything outside of that. And so when it came to colleges and applying for colleges, I had really high hopes for myself. And interestingly enough, I had a really bad experience when it came to getting accepted to colleges. I had a high GPA, I had a high SAT score, I had extracurriculars, I had all of these things. And I didn't get into a few of the colleges that I had expected to get into. And I feel that kind of, I don't know, kind of struck me in a way of being okay, now who am I? All of this work and all of this part of my identity over these last 4 years kind of felt like it was all for nothing. And I didn't really understand why at the time. And so anyway, like I really wanted to go to UC Davis in Northern California, and I was waitlisted. And so I was like, okay, I will accept a school in just the list of schools that I was accepted at, which was San Diego State was one of the schools I was accepted at. So I was like, okay, I'll just accept at this random college. I did no research into it because at the time I was like, I'm for sure going to go to like one of these schools or UC Davis. I just have to accept at another school in the meantime. Anyway, I got rejected from Davis. And so I ended up having to go to San Diego State. And I don't know if you know anything about San Diego State, but San Diego State is like a very party school and very big in like Greek life. I would say like just given the location, it attracts just like a lot of like young, beautiful, like what men and female and men and women who want to come and like party and have a really like fun college experience. Not at all aligned with like who I was in high school for sure. But when I came to San Diego State, I kind of came with this like mindset of like, I just worked for 4 years in high school for nothing. I'm going to college that I don't want to go to. And I have like so many like question marks too of like who I am, and my confidence and my self-worth was like probably at an all-time low. And so when I came to San Diego State, I think it like plummeted me even more so into this like really dark place, like mentally. So long story short, ended up basically getting an eating disorder while I was in college. I know, very personal direction.
Yeah,
So
no, that's okay. Thank you for sharing.
yeah. I mean, it's something that like I haven't really talked about, but at this point, it's so far in my past that
Mhm.
like I feel pretty comfortable talking about it now because it is something that I've worked through to overcome. And so anyway, it kind of was something that very much was exacerbated like throughout my college years, just given like my circumstances and my surroundings. And so when I was a junior or approaching my junior year of college, I kind of realized I had like two paths that I could take. And my one path was like kind of continue ignoring this like problem within like myself and my lifestyle and like keep experiencing college, keep like study abroad or like still kind of continue trying to make my college experience like something. Or I could basically tell my parents what has been going on.
Mm,
And so I chose the latter of telling my parents what had been going on, which was not easy at all. Let me tell you, because
yeah.
like especially like at that point, I think I had kind of like I made some friends and I kind of felt like I was on like a pretty okay path, but I knew that it wasn't something that was gonna be sustainable for myself for the long term. So I made a choice and I left school for a semester
Mm,
to go into treatment and like take care of myself. And yeah, so like even though I think like when I reflect on that, because it's interesting, like obviously I told my parents and my brother that I was doing your podcast, and all three of them overwhelmingly were like, well, like this situation. And I was like, gosh, do you think that that's really something that was bold? And they were like, 100% that was bold because like you could have, it was at such a pivotal time in college life, right? And like your junior year of college that
yeah.
like leaving at that time and like kind of choosing yourself and choosing like your long term kind of health and trying to put yourself like on a better path was like bold. I guess like so anyway, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna talk about that. It was like my thought at the time. I was like, I don't know, that's kind of like a very deep thing to talk about. But after again, like reflecting over the last month, I was like, actually, that is something that I'm proud of. And it is something that I feel like kind of reset the trajectory just because I was at like such a low point and then coming back out of it, it kind of just like reset myself and I came back with this like newfound confidence and newfound path that like I don't know what I would be like if I didn't like make that decision at the time.
Yeah. Well,
So
first, I just want to acknowledge, thank you for sharing that very personal story and experience
yeah.
because I think so many people can relate, even if they've never had the eating disorder. There are
Mhm.
so many parts of this story that you just shared, whether it's figuring out your identity, going to college, even if you feel like you do know who you are, that's still a very nerve-wracking experience. And when you said, like, oh, I don't know if that's bold, in my head, I was like, that's like so bold to make that choice. And to recognize that, yeah, you were at a place where you needed that extra help and support. And
Mhm.
I truly think that is one of the boldest things that people can do, is recognizing like we are not meant to be able to do everything on our own. Like life does throw things like that at us, whether it's eating disorder, other mental health disorders. I know I've struggled with my own things, and I think there's this narrative that you are supposed to be able to figure it out on your own. And like you are seen as weak if you don't, when in reality, that couldn't be more from the truth. And so just want to acknowledge, like, thank you for sharing that story, because I genuinely do think people will resonate with it. And even the identity piece of it, like, I think back to high school and so much of what you just shared, I was like, I feel like I am looking in a mirror. I also was someone who, like, high achiever, focused on grades. Like, I played some sports, but I was not good at them. I was a classic bench rider, like, and really put a lot of my time and effort, yeah, into extracurriculars to make sure I like had set myself up. And I now being, gosh, I graduated high school like 12 years ago, which is crazy to say out loud.
Oh wait,
Like,
yeah, me too. It was you
okay,
20?
2014. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So like 12 years ago, and there's still times that I see myself struggling with that, of like, do I have that clearly defined yet? And I probably should tell myself that that is something you evolve over your life, right? That you never are like truly set in stone. But I just think back to high school and that experience of you put all your energy into this one thing. And I think my husband being a coach, like he talks about it a lot, of like, so many kids, it's athletics. Like if you are the person who's really good at sports, like your identity is in sports, and then you graduate, and whether you go to a big school, you go to a small school, you choose not to go to school, like it is a big life shift that can cause you so many questions, and you start to wonder. And so it's, I think a lot of people can fall into that trap of comparison and just feeling like they are not good enough or doing enough, or all the work that they have spent their time on those last, 4 years of high school just doesn't mean anything. And so just wanted to validate, like, I really do understand a lot of your story, even though I've never struggled with an eating disorder myself, but can really just see so many through lines in your experiences.
Yeah, thank you for the validation. And yeah, I think like even though of course like the overall thing like maybe not be, it might not be the exact same, but I think like the pieces of it, of just like the journey along the way, or like the internal struggles, like I definitely agree. And even just talking to my own friends, it's like we've all kind of
Mm.
like struggled with these things along the way, or just these like self-doubts, or just figuring it out along the way, and all these different kind of bumps and turns and twists that are just inevitable. And it's interesting, I'm curious like how you feel about like college, in the sense of when I graduated, kind of learned, I didn't realize this, but I learned that like where you went to college like really is part of your identity
Mhm.
too when you first graduate. And it's so interesting because I think that like I don't want to say too like when I like came back to San Diego State after I took that semester off, it's not like everything was like sunshine and rainbows and
Sure.
I was past it. Like it definitely, there was definitely still a lot of like mental struggles for years afterwards. And one of the biggest mental hurdles that I feel like I just now came out of like in the last couple of years was not feeling like proud of like where I went to college,
Mm.
which is so weird to even say that. But I think like I went
Mhm.
to, once I graduated, I moved to the Bay Area. And I think the Bay Area, everyone is so like Stanford, Berkeley, Harvard, like there's all these like Ivy League kids. And it's so much of how you're hired and whatnot too.
Mm.
When I started at my first job, it was like I was looking around a room of people who all went to like Ivy League schools or top universities, and like being told like, oh yeah, I was hired here because of like the school that I went to, which is so interesting. And so
Yeah.
when I was starting out in my career, I felt so like small and I felt so insecure being like, oh, I went to
Mhm.
school in San Diego. And every single time somebody would be like, oh, UC San Diego, or like, oh, University of San Diego. And I have to say, like, no, San Diego State. And then I met with a, oh, got it.
Ah,
I know, which is
gosh,
so
that's
interesting.
so interesting. And I wonder if some of that is like geographic. Like you're in California, where yes, there are these like massive Ivy League schools versus like where I went to school in North Dakota. Like I would say like there it's more the rivalry of like, oh, you went to NDSU versus UND or vice versa, like the sports rivalry. But I think I can relate to how your school is a weird part of your identity that you don't really expect. Like when you pick a school, you're picking a school, you're picking a major, and then when you graduate, you don't really realize how many times like people are going to ask you, where did you graduate from? And I think of like office culture, right? Where people are like, oh, college day, like wear your college t-shirt. And in someone
Mm,
who works in hiring, like how many times that's something we're talking about is like the rigor of the programs. And it is interesting because at the end of the day, a degree is a degree, right? If like depending on the university, like yes, there's certain things to be said about like accredited universities and programs, but if if you got the degree, you did what you had to do. You met those graduation requirements just like anyone else. And yes, there are some schools that their programs, like every program looks differently. Nothing is necessarily carbon copy. But the fact that like there's so much like weight given to a specific school, or that there's even a yeah, like this like a bias when it comes to what
or even
school
like a
you went
status.
to. Yes,
Right.
status. That's the word I was looking for. That's the right word. Like that is such an interesting dynamic, and I think at least I have hope. And I it could be ignorant to say this, but I feel like we are seeing that shift of now there are more people pursuing community colleges or like online schools, and that some of that like maybe it's a generational thing where like the high school students I think are just more thinking about, and some of it's probably like the cost of education that just continues to rise. But there's part of me that feels like maybe that will change as the generations continue, and people will, since college is looked at differently now in some ways, that maybe that status will go away when it's like it doesn't necessarily matter. But again, it's a piece of identity that I don't think you realize how much emphasis will be put on it.
For sure. No, for sure. Like, when I tell you, I mean, obviously it was something that bothered me just given like everything that I had shared with you about like
Yeah.
what my goals were and what I had worked towards and it not working out and then kind of just saying screw it when I got to college and kind of letting everything crumble. But I, worked through that. I graduated super proud and then to leave and still kind of have that like over me was so interesting,
Mhm.
impacted me way more than I thought. Like I even had people straight up say like, "Oh, you went to San Diego State," like as
Hmm.
if as if it was a negative or as if like they were surprised. They're like, "Oh, you seem so smart." That's so
Oh,
interesting. I legit have had someone say that to me in like the very early days and it's so interesting to look back on because like of course it affected me. Of course it affected how
yeah.
I showed up in the workplace. Of course it affected my confidence. Like I kind of felt like, oh, I don't belong here or oh,
Mm,
I don't have the ability to like grow or excel in this world because I
mm,
didn't go to one of these schools that you all
yeah.
have deemed like acceptable. And
Yeah. And that's so interesting. Like on the topic of identity, I feel like it's something I've thought about because I certainly went through my own identity crisis. Like, and I would say it maybe happened more for me, like, yeah, mid college into like the first 2 years after graduating, because I think I went from in college, like, I kind of still carried some of that energy from high school. Like, okay, I can still get good grades, I can get involved in things. And it was certainly I think there was probably a lot of anxiety and depression that I just didn't know or realize at the time until I graduated. And then graduating and your entire life really does shift because you're no longer in classes. You're working a job maybe 8 to 5, and you have free time in a different way. And even your social circles are starting to change, and you're given this quote unquote freedom of being an adult, even though you feel like I still at 29 feel like I should not be an adult. Like, who gave me that title?
Sure.
But
For sure.
I feel like it is interesting that how much emphasis certain parts of our identity get put on. And like you just said, how someone would question, like, oh, you seem smarter than that. Or like, and that just to me is so, like, I'm trying to think of like outside of school. I feel like there's so many other spaces where people have just that predetermined notion of like this or that, or even the like I always joke like I was high school valedictorian and I now though I'm like I was good at memorizing. Like I don't think that I'm not saying I'm not smart, but I'm like I think that identity that I had at that time was like, oh, I am smart. Like school is what I'm good at. And it was, yeah, I can memorize things well. But if you ask me to recite anything from high school, like math,
Oh,
history, like I don't have that knowledge anymore. And some of that's maybe just I've replaced it with other knowledge, but it's just interesting how yeah the saying what school you go to can give someone this impression of like, oh well, you're not smart, or you're not able to learn just as well as I am, and giving people that opportunity, especially in young in their career, that like you got the job or you did the things, like let me like
yeah.
yes, like it's just so interesting.
It's so interesting, and it's like I wish that I could go back in time and like talk to that person
Yes.
who was so, because again, like I was shy in high school. That came into college, and that like still existed post college, but it was shy because I felt like I didn't have like the accolades or like the background or like the right to like speak up and
Yeah.
say on my mind or ask questions because I didn't feel like I had the right like resume or background or whatever it
Mm.
might be. And like I would have managers at the time like see this in me, and like thankfully like I had really great managers who would encourage me like have confidence, speak up, like you are smart, like you
Yeah.
do know the right questions to ask, you do have like the right like mindset, or that you're thinking about everything the right way, just like have the confidence to speak up. And it took me a very long time to get there. And it's crazy because now I have a lot of confidence. And even I had like my performance review last week, and my manager, like, this was the first review where my manager was like, I really appreciate your confidence when you
Mm.
step into a room, where when you give a presentation, when you do X, Y, and Z. And I have never had a manager like come outright and say
Yeah.
that and not have it be like an area of growth for me,
Sure.
right? Which is crazy because I graduated 12 years ago, and this is the first time that I'm now being described as someone with confidence. So it took me a very long
Hmm.
time to get to the spot that I'm in. And what's interesting also is like I think that this situation is what drew me even more so to like the company that I work for,
Mm.
because the whole mission is like creating an equitable kind of opportunity or hiring process, whatever it may be, like, but providing every single student, regardless of where they go to school, with an opportunity at whatever job, whatever company that they want to work
Mm.
for. And so like that like really spoke to me when I was first interviewing for my job. And I think that being here is what has given me the confidence. Like I just feel like I've never once been doubted, like, why are you here? I've never once been looked at by the school that I
Mm.
went to or graduated from, not in the way that I was at like my previous job.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing when you're saying that is how these life experiences, whether positive or challenging, because I've been on both sides of that, how they really do shape our priorities. Like you mentioned that your company, right? And finding like through that interview process, like this is something that is really important to me and that I value. And how when those priorities align with a place that is supportive, it
Yeah.
allows you to flourish. Like it allows you to build your confidence, because I think confidence is such a topic, and I know I talk about this with my team members. Like, I think as leaders, when we have a team, or even if it's not someone that you're directly managing and it's just someone you work with, I think we see potential in people often. Like, and I see, right? Like when you said that, Taylor, you and I work together, not at the same company, but as like customer relationships. Like, I never would have guessed that you are someone who was not, because you are like, you're very competent. You know what you're talking about. I feel like you can answer all my questions. And it's so interesting how, again, I think like that says so much about the environment that your company has built, that it is a place where you have been able to build that confidence, because confidence, I think, is something that's really hard to teach. Like there's so much like so much individualness with that. I don't think that's a word, but like it takes a lot of work on your own. Like I can say to someone on my team, I want you to be more confident, and I can create an environment for them to do that. But until that person is really willing to like step into their own and challenge themselves, or listen to my like, hey, I see you doing these things, or right feedback that they're getting in that positive way, it like confidence is so much like how you believe in yourself. And so it's just fascinating, like the environments that you put yourself in like can really make a difference, so that you feel comfortable like stepping into who you really are, or what you like want to say to the world. And I think that's something we forget when we talk about confidence. Like it's really easy to say like, oh, you need to be more confident, or I need to work on my confidence, but the actual practicality of that is so much deeper and challenging than I think people recognize.
I 100% agree and truly couldn't have said that better, especially being someone who did struggle with confidence for so many years of my life. And I look at my mom, for example, and I've always joked with her because she's always told me, be more confident. You just need to be more confident. And I'm like, how? Like, even as a little
Hmm.
girl, I'm like, what does that mean? Like, how do I just be more confident? And I used to say to her, like, I'm not like you. Like, I didn't come out of the womb with confidence. Like, my mom came out of the womb with confidence and I just didn't. So I do believe it's something that, like, you either have or you don't. But if you don't have it, it doesn't mean that you're kind of like shit out of luck.
Yeah.
You can build it and develop it, but it does take time. It does take nurturing.
Mm,
It takes like nurturing the relationship with yourself. It takes understanding the things that like bring you joy and bring you comfort and bring you, I don't know, like even just thinking about like who you surround yourself with can bring you confidence. And when you're in a really positive environment, when you're doing things for yourself, like where you find things in your life where you can kind of feel that feeling of like accomplishment and success. That could be anything. It could be work, it could be being a mom, it could be even being
mhm,
like a dog mom, it could be you're in your marriage, like finding those kind of like things in yourself, like whatever it might be. But there's all these different channels that I think allow you to like, okay, like this is how I feel when I'm being my true authentic self, and allow you like this is what I can tap into in these moments
mhm.
when I'm feeling a little bit like, because we still get nervous, of
Yeah.
course,
Oh, of course.
still get nervous,
Yes.
still get anxious, but I think that you like over time and doing all the work, you can kind of find these avenues to tap into of like knowing and know that this is who I am and like I feel confident in that, and like
Mhm,
that's how you can exude that. But it takes a lot of work. It took me a long time. And if I ever tell like people who know me today, like you, Carrie, like you know me like kind of like in my adult like confident like
mhm,
version of myself, if I tell people kind of like, oh, if I ever struggle with confidence or that I'm a shy person, people are shocked. So
mhm.
it's interesting. And like, I mean, I hope if anybody like does listen to this out there that is struggling with their confidence, like knowing that it is possible to find it. You're not stuck.
Yes. And I think in today's society, it's so hard because we live in a social world. Like social media, I at the beginning of January like deleted social media for like 2 weeks, and it was actually amazing how my brain like did start to change of
Yeah.
I was thinking differently, because when you're on social media every day, like it is so hard not to compare yourself to any other situation. And whether it's body image, which I know I personally like, that is one of my worst things about social media. And also it's like you said, like it takes a lot of work. And I also think it's a never ending journey. Like there are days where I feel so confident in what I am doing, and then the next day something could trigger me or cause me like to spiral, and all of a sudden I'm back to where I am. Or I have spaces where I feel more confident than others, where like maybe career I feel a little bit more confident because I've been doing it a lot longer. I have more of that knowledge built out. And then in other spaces where I'm trying something new, I'm like, okay, back to insecure Carrie. And it's just It is hard. And so I'm curious, as you like have gone on this confidence journey, like what are some of the things that have helped you develop that? If you can think of like practical things. Like I know that's a hard question like we just said, but what do you feel like has actually helped you?
You know what is interesting? And like, I don't know. I think this might be like a controversial answer, but like, weirdly, I think it was my husband, which is
I don't think that's controversial. Yeah.
it's, I think, because I don't want it to be mistaken for like my husband gave me confidence or
Yeah.
anything like that. But I think I met him 5 years ago, or like 5.5 years ago now at this point. I was at my previous job, and I think I was still very much in the like, who am I? And like, what am I doing? Where am I going? Very much in the like low self worth kind of phase. But I think that, and this is maybe where I say it is a lot about who you surround yourself
Hmm.
with. And so my husband is someone who like is always unapologetically himself, and he's very smart. He's probably the smartest person that I know, but you would never know that when you're talking to him. When you're talking to him, he's a big goofball. He's very nerdy, very silly, like very, anyway, like he's a quirky personality, but like he's himself always. And like that I think encourages me to be my authentic self, and maybe like allowed me to explore like who that really is. Like I don't have to be this kind of like buttoned up person all of the time. I can kind of let some of these sides to myself come out that maybe I had suppressed, because like he like saw me and like saw all these like sides of myself and like liked them. And so like if I showed a glimpse, like he responded positively, and it would like, okay, like, and encourage me to kind of continue down that path. But it's interesting. And then the reason why I even kind of know that that's the answer is because even my mom has said
Mm.
that. And she had noticed when like I had first started dating him that like I was acting different in a positive way.
Mm.
And so that's how because like I will say, like when I first started dating my husband, like for the first like year or so, like I would never have ever said like he's the one. Like I wasn't
Sure.
that type of person. I'm still like not like, now I know obviously he obviously is the one, but like that was just never something that had come out of my mouth when I would ever talk about him or like marriage and stuff like that. But my mom was like, when she would tell her parent or her friends, she'd be like, "Oh yeah, he's the one." And they would
Mm.
tell me that, and I would be like, "What? Like, how do you even know?" And it's like, and she was like, "Because of how you are when you're with him and how you've like come out of your shell." And
Mm.
so I find, and even though, yes, like I don't love the answer, because I think in an ideal world, like we can find like that confidence within ourselves, or like those tools within ourselves. But like maybe a takeaway from this is like, if there are those people in your life who like bring out those versions of
Mm.
yourself or make you feel like who you are is enough, or, comfortable to be all of those like parts of yourself, like those are positive signs that those are people that you should keep around and be around more often. Like the people who make you feel like you're not enough, or who make you feel like
Mm.
you can't be your true self, or make you feel like smaller, like those aren't the people in your life. And I think that unfortunately I was surrounded by a lot of those
Mm.
for many years.
Yes.
So
I like my cheeks are like hurting from smiling because everything that you just said, spot on, relate to 110%. And that's why I feel like that answer isn't controversial because I really do feel that way about my husband too. And as you described your husband, I was like, I think our husbands would be best friends. Like my husband's also like a goof and just really authentically himself and super smart and can connect with anyone. And we
mhm.
always joke that he's the golden retriever and I'm the black cat. Like
Well, that is me and my husband 100.
like spot on. And but I think what or how that has allowed is like me to build confidence is exactly how you described it. Like I don't think I really realized how much of myself I was stifling in past friendships, relationships, situations because I didn't feel like the safety to be who I was, or maybe I had at times and it had been perceived negatively. And as we started dating, like I think I was at a different place. Like we started dating 6 years ago. So honestly, on about the same time that you guys did. And I think I had gotten out of a really, really hard relationship and I'd done a lot of therapy. So I'd already started that journey a little bit. But I think the biggest indicators for me were like I was just being myself. Like I allow myself to be that person who doesn't have to have it all put together around him, or even like there have been times where we're gonna go do something with other people and I'm like, oh, like I probably should put makeup on, and he's like, why? Like if you don't
Yeah.
want to. And it's just that
Yeah.
that different, like the way that he'll ask things, and it like makes me rethink how I've thought about things, and again been able to honestly take some of those things into therapy sessions and then like this is something I never even knew about myself, or like that I approached things this way. And so it's allowed me to unwork situations. And I actually remember him asking him one time, talking about like self-consciousness, especially around like intimidating and imposter syndrome and stuff. And I had used the example of, for him, he's a basketball coach. So I said, like, imagine you walk into a giant ballroom of like the best basketball coaches in the country, whether it's high school, NBA, college, like all the best basketball players in the world. Like, how are you feeling and what are you thinking? And he's like, oh, I am hyped to have conversations with all these people and learn from them and get super excited. And I was like, that's so interesting because if I put myself in a similar situation, but thinking about like powerful women and like just women I like love and respect and think that they are doing amazing things, like as much as I can be excited about having the conversations, like there's the underlying nervousness and anxiousness of, is my outfit good enough? Am I going to
Mm,
say something that makes me sound silly? Like, do I even deserve to be having these conversations because these people are doing way more than I am and they're like way cooler? And just being able to like vocalize that and hear his thought process made me realize, what, that's how I want to feel when I walk into a room like that. But it's just a different mindset. And so I really relate to how that relationship, or again, even broader, the people that you surround yourself with who are speaking positively and encouraging you, does make a massive difference in how you can live authentically.
totally, totally. Or how you start like talking to yourself. Because
Hmm.
I think the way that I talk to myself changed a lot. Of course, I still have like negative self-talk. Like
Yes.
I'm a woman, like it's going to happen. But I think it's a much different internal dialogue today than what I had 10 years
Hmm.
ago for sure. And I think that makes a huge difference. And I always thought too, like you kind of hear like there's sayings that are like talk to like you wouldn't ever talk to your closest friends the way that you
Hmm.
talk to yourself. So why do we do
Yep.
that? Like, there's so
And when
much
you say
easier.
it out loud, it sounds so simple. And then in
Yeah,
your head, you're like, that's the crazy, like, how in the world am I supposed to change that narrative? Like,
for sure. No, for sure.
yeah.
Even just saying like I don't belong in this room, right? And like the fact that like a man would never I don't know if it's confidence, I don't know if it's just a more like simplified way of thinking or just
Hmm.
like I don't know. I'm not meaning to make a blanket judgment. I'll say for
Sure.
myself like I'm an overthinker for sure. Not to say that
Yes.
all women are versus men, but I'm an overthinker. I don't think my husband overthinks quite as much. And so
Hmm.
that's why like maybe he would be more inclined to be like, "Oh, that's so cool," versus I'm like, "Well, there's this, there's that, there's this factor, this could go wrong. What about this?" Like all these things that impact how you feel when you come into a room instead of just thinking like, "This is cool, I belong here."
Yeah.
So,
It's something I
it's
think about a lot when I don't know if you go to like professional development type stuff or speakers, right? And I enjoy that stuff a lot. And it was a couple of years ago, I went to this event. It was like a full day goal setting summit that one of my friends, like her company puts it on, and it's a fantastic event. And the whole day, like the different speakers were telling their story. Like, here's this thing that happened to me and what I did to overcome it and all this stuff. And I had this narrative in my head that was like, it would be really cool to be on stage like that someday, but I don't have a story to tell. And
mhm,
just that narrative, I literally left that day being like I could never do that. I don't have a story to tell. No one would care to listen. And then like a year ago when I started this podcast, it was after a program that I run for women. We had done a panel event, and one of the people in the program had come up afterwards, and she's a friend of mine, and we were chatting, and she was just like, I think that like you need to take this further. Like it was an amazing conversation tonight, and like I think there's stories to
cool.
be told here. And it was a light bulb of, huh, I do have a story. It just looks different. It's not the same. I didn't run a 50-mile race or like overcome this like massively crazy thing, but it has helped me recognize, and I think that's this whole concept of bold. I don't know that I have a ton of moments that are like huge, right? Compare, like if you were to compare to someone else's life moments, but I have a lot of moments that felt huge to me that I had to be bold in, whether it was getting out of a hard relationship, if it was changing my career when I knew that it wasn't something I was interested anymore. Like I have spaces of that, or even just recognizing like you do have anxiety and you do have depression, and what are you going to do about those things? That helped me realize like we all have a story and we just compare ours to other people's when really like that's not why people want to hear your story. And we all have those unique things about us that make our story unique.
100%. And I really appreciate you sharing everything that you just said because, like, I'm not going to lie, when you first asked me to be on the podcast and like said what the question was, I was like, my God, like, what am I going to talk about? Like, I've never done anything bold, right? Like, those were my
Mm-hmm.
initial thoughts, or like, you start playing these comparison games of like somebody who moved across the world for
Mm-hmm.
whatever particular reason, somebody who like led a protest. Like those were the types of things that
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about when I was thinking about like what are bold things that people do. And then I was like, well, I haven't done that. Well, I haven't done that. Well, I haven't done
Mm-hmm.
that. And so anyway, like it was a lot of like really interesting reflection. And like for me, like coming out of this, I feel like it's kind of shifted my mindset in a good way of like, how can I be bold in my life? How can I continue to show up like in a bold way, whether it's for myself, for my friends, for the world, like what that
Mm-hmm.
means. So like I want to thank you because I feel like this
Mm-hmm.
experience has kind of positively shifted my mindset to of and like potentially will even determine like how I show up as I move through life going ahead. But I say all that to like ask you. I've been curious like what your answer would be to the same question of something bold that you've done. I don't know if you've talked about that already, like on a previous podcast or
Yeah, a
any.
little bit. I did an episode last fall at some point where I kind of flipped the script. I had a friend interview me and I
Oh,
talked,
cool.
that was more like career focused, but it actually did, like you said, it left me feeling afterwards like I think there's more than I give myself credit for. And I actually had a lot of people reach out after that episode, like in my personal life, that were just like, wow, like, thank you for sharing that. I learned so much. And like, I have a similar story. Like, I didn't even realize. And I think I would answer it like beyond that career example, which was really just about like a place when I was very burnt out and had to really recognize something's got to change. I do think one of the boldest things I've ever done is gotten into therapy, and
Mm-hmm.
I did it like pretty resistantly. Like I was not like I was going through a really hard time in life. Like I said, I had gotten out of a really toxic relationship. I was questioning like career, what am I supposed to be doing? And I had a
Mm-hmm.
friend that had gone into therapy and was like, I think you maybe would benefit from talking to someone. And our work paid for it. Like there was no excuse for me not to go. And I was like, I don't know. And so it took me like a couple months and I finally set up the appointment. And I even remember that first appointment being like, I don't know what I'm supposed to talk about. Like what, like, I don't know. And there's a reason therapists are mostly wonderful at what they do. Yes, there's not, not always good. I shouldn't generalize, but like there's a reason that therapists are good at what they do because they help you recognize and discover things that you didn't even know you needed to talk and process through. And I now like, gosh, so that would have been like 7 years ago, probably. And now, like, I don't go to therapy often. It's more of a as needed because I have built up many things in my toolkit to support myself on my own. But there was a lot of moments in therapy sessions where like I felt really challenged. And I, especially in the last probably 2 years of going to therapy, like I had switched to a new therapist. And by far, one of the best decisions that I had made was going to her because she didn't allow me to BS my way through an appointment. Like she could really read behind the like perfect wall that I was putting up. And when I started going to her, I was like, I've been going to therapy for like 5 years. Like I am so well adjusted. And And was just like, I just think I need like maintenance and that kind of stuff. And I remember like her diving into the topic.
Mhm.
Yep, like she's just like sitting there like, tell me more. And I remember her like diving into vulnerability a lot, which I would have said at the time, like, I'm an open book. I'll tell you anything you want to know. And I still hear myself saying those words and having to catch myself. But then as we dove into vulnerability, because she is trained in Brene Brown's like curriculum that therapists can use, which is very focused on vulnerability and shame. As we were talking, like I would say something about whether it was a work situation or a personal situation, and she'd be like, you're here. I need you to go way deeper. Like, you're not actually getting at the root of how you feel. Like, you are giving me the answer that you think I'm supposed to hear or that you think I need to hear. And it like shocked my system in the best way. And that alone, like, feels like a bold choice, like not running away from those conversations because it has changed how I show up for people and how I show up just as myself. And I'm not perfect. And that is probably my favorite part of this podcast is the amount of people that I've talked to or like asked them to be on it. And they're like, I was kind of surprised that you asked me. Like, I never really thought about what that would mean. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the point, right? It's to tell the authentic stories that you might not think you've been bold. And then we start talking, and I'm like, what do you mean you've never been bold? Like, that's a lot of bold in one story. So it's been a good reminder for me as I have these conversations too, that those moments that I don't feel like I'm bold, like, nope, you are. And we should be reminded of that sometimes too.
Totally, totally. And I think it's interesting to see too, like some of these choices or situations that we're finding ourselves in where we're being bold and we don't even know that we are, but still like how they're shaping like certain situations that we're having, or even like the trajectory of our life and the different directions. And I think it's helpful to hear that like those like bold doesn't look how you or doesn't have like a one
Mm,
specific look. It doesn't have to be what you think that it is because it doesn't fit in one particular box. So I
mhm.
think like that's an interesting like lesson or like takeaway that I'm coming away with today is like even like those small moments are still bold moments to be proud of.
Yes, like I really have tried to change my mindset of like, okay, what is like a bold thing I'm doing today? Maybe it's you made the bold decision to say no to coffee with a friend because you got to study, or it's like bold to say yes to like a night at home to yourself, or we were talking before we hopped on, like you're getting a puppy on Saturday. Like that's a bold choice. Like recognizing like I'm gonna take on like taking care of another living thing. And you know, I'm a dog mom, so I think it's one
Yeah.
of the best bold choices you can make. But it is like, I think when we can shift our definition of it, we start to recognize the potential that we have too and going forward. And it's really, I think, helped me even shift like how I look at goals. I think it has helped me also recognize what are some of the small little things that I want to do this year. Like, okay, I want to read 5 more books than I did last year. And that means I'm going to have to say no to watching a TV show every now and again, or I'm gonna have to like stop scrolling social media and read on my Kindle while I'm waiting in line for groceries. Like, and those again,
Yes.
that's I think when you think of like the concept of bold, oh, that's not the answer someone's gonna give you. But if we all shifted our mindset that direction, I do think we would all feel a lot less pressure to be this perfect image that we have in our head for ourselves. And that in itself, bringing it full circle, leads to more confidence because you feel that barrier come down of what you think you have to be in comparison to other people.
So true. When one of the most interesting realizations that I had was when I realized like my perfectionism wasn't like a positive thing and was
Yeah.
actually getting in the way of my confidence and me kind of getting to like this place that I wanted to be at because I was so afraid to not appear as perfect all
Yep.
of the time. And
Yep.
it's and I used to wear the perfectionism badge like an honor,
Hmm.
and I realized that it wasn't. And
Yep.
that was a very interesting realization.
But
It was
yes, the perfectionism, the type A, the people
uh,
pleaser, all of those things
people
that I
pleasing.
used to say, like,
Yeah.
what's your best quality? Like, oh, I'm super type A. Like, it is amazing. Or I think of interview questions of like, what's your strength? Or like, what's your biggest weakness? Like, I could be a bit of a perfectionist, but I use it to my advantage and I do it like that, like round answer that we all are told to use.
Yes,
And having
exactly.
to actually stop and go, I think this is hurting me more than it's doing me any good. And it like that in itself is scary because when you have lived your life being a perfectionist and it has gotten you to where you are, and now I
Mhm.
think both of us through this conversation can probably look back and pull out moments of where that perfectionism really hurt us. Like there's a reason I think I developed anxiety and it's stemmed
For
from some of those things,
Yep. Yep.
but it is hard to then shed that. Like that's not something that happens overnight. And I still catch myself doing it if I'm working on a project or heck, even if I'm planning a vacation for my husband and I will like feel myself going the extra mile that I don't need to actually go because I just want it to be so perfectly packaged and put
Yeah.
together, and I've had to consciously like, no, you are overthinking this, or like you're taking the fun out of things that could be really enjoyable because your brain is so focused on how can I make this perfectly packaged so that like it nothing could go wrong and I will know exactly what to expect and how to react to those situations. And it's exhausting, honestly, like how much brain power we spend on trying to be those things, and how, yes, if we can shed those things, which takes so much work, like we really are better off.
For sure. And it's just crazy because like we're the ones putting this pressure on ourselves or
Mhm.
these expectations on ourselves that no one else is.
Exactly. Yep. It's like those are the moments where I'm like, I wish I could have an off switch for the brain. Like,
I
turn it
know.
off, stop the thinking, separate yourself from this, and just see it differently. And then going back to our husbands, I do think that has been one of the most beneficial parts of this, like self
Right?
growth, of having someone who can see that in you or like recognize when you are starting to do that and like
Yes.
actually stop your train of thought and be like, wait, I think you're overthinking. And like, thankfully,
Yeah.
my husband and I have a good enough relationship where like I'm not offended by that. In fact, I'm like, you're right. Let
Yeah.
me regroup. It That goes back to the people, right? Having those safe people that you can trust to help you through those moments and give you the space to not be perfect and to figure it out as you go.
Right. Like
Mm,
helping you realize like, oh, it's okay to not be perfect, not have everything perfectly planned or perfectly filled out or perfectly like figured out, like whatever it might be. And like I feel like when you're introduced to the concept that that's okay, at least when I was like, oh, like a light bulb kind of went off.
mm-hmm,
And oh, it's okay. Got it. Weird. Like I think maybe
mm-hmm.
like it took like a few times of it happening. The first time it was probably like and then once you once it happens a few more times, you're like, oh, really? Okay, like maybe I'll allow this concept in. And what do you mean that it's like okay to not do these things or
Mm,
not feed into the thoughts? Like, what are you talking about? Like that's an
exactly.
option? Right, unreasonable.
Yes.
Yeah,
Ugh, Taylor, we could probably talk for
I know.
hours. Like, this has been so amazing. And I know we've talked a lot about like a lot of deep topics. So to kind of wrap up our episode, I want to shift into more lighthearted, just rapid fire questions to end it. So the one I like to start with is, what's your beverage of choice? What's going to be on your desk during the day or what's in your hand at night?
Oh my God. Well, Diet Coke. I have a Diet Coke every single day. But all also it's like very funny. It's like I'm a chronic like coffee drink. It's my all my friends make fun of me because nobody else like sips their coffee all day long like I do. So if you ask the question of like what's on my desk, it's always going to be coffee from this morning and or my drink of choice is a Diet Coke. I definitely have an addiction and I drink at least one a day.
That is amazing that you can sip your coffee through the whole day. Like, I think that might be a skill. I mean, it appears that you're an iced coffee drinker, not a hot coffee drinker. And that maybe that's a little bit easier. Like, you're not then drinking like stale, like
Totally,
room
totally.
temperature coffee, but that is a
But it's
skill.
watered down, and my friends are
Yeah.
just like I feel like my husband and like my best friend are two examples where they just like chug the whole drink like right away. Like the iced coffee doesn't make it more than like 30 minutes, and then they like look at me and I'm still sipping mine like hours later, and they're like, "You're weird. Why?"
It's like always leave the last sip, whether it's coffee, like a soda. It's a bad habit because I will like go to throw a can away and be like, huh, I guess I never finished that. Or like when we're doing the dishes at night, my husband will be like, do you want the last sip of milk from your glass? And I'm like, huh, I guess. Like
Yeah.
I don't even realize that I do it. So I would be like you, but mine would just be the last sip on my desk the whole day. And I just don't realize that I
Yeah.
could have just taken one more sip and finished the glass. Okay, what's your favorite way to unwind?
Ooh, watching TV for sure. That's like anytime I finish like my meetings. So like I obviously am in my office for meetings, and then when I'm done, I head to the couch and I like put on something like probably on Bravo, and then I
Amazing.
do all of my like follow-up work. But that is like my unwind time is like couch time, finishing up work with Bravo on 100%.
Amazing. I feel like reality TV has been a common answer as I've asked people that question. Like, how do you unwind? I feel like Bravo has been brought up a few times, and
Makes
I haven't watched any of them. I'm more of like a sitcom, like give me New Girl all day long or something like that. But I have a lot of people on my team and a lot of friends that are very much like, give me the Bravo reality TV shows. And I understand like it's just so different from our day to day. Like it makes sense that that's a way for you to just unwind and get out of your own
sense.
head.
Exactly. It's a way to turn my brain off and to like see a different life that is not my own and just kind of like
Yep.
look at the craziness.
Yep, that's totally fair. Kind of in that same vein, what is something that you're grateful for today?
Oh, good question. I think today I am grateful. I'm grateful for my house.
That's a good one.
I mean, you know, the like year that we had with just moving into this house and all of that. But this like past weekend, my mom came and visited because my husband was in China and he just got back on Sunday night from a work trip. And like this week, we have just spent like every single night at home
Mm,
together and like we're preparing for the puppy. And I just feel like we've put in so much work to make this house feel like a home. And I genuinely right now I'm like loving being in the space. And so I feel grateful. I feel grateful, of course, to have a roof over my head, but especially in this case where it was like such a long time coming and now we're at like the fun part of making it like an actual home.
it's the
So
best part. I feel like after the first year of being in a house, like you just feel settled. And there are
yes,
many moments where I've been sitting on the couch and just been like, wow, I'm really grateful for like the space that we've created and that we get to have these like quiet moments on our couch.
yes, with the fire on and a glass of
Ugh,
wine.
the best.
10 out of 10.
Okay, two more questions. The next one, if you had to hear your friends, you overheard your friends talking about you, what would you
Yeah.
want to hear them saying?
Oh, interesting. I think I would. Well, I guess I'm like, what would they say about me? Like, I know what they would say about me versus, I guess, like, what they say about me is what I would want them to say, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
My friends would say that I'm like a very empathetic
Mm,
person and someone that they can always come to for like a non-judgmental ear and someone who like will listen and give advice and someone who like is genuinely kind. Or at least that's what
mm,
I would want them to say. Like I think something I try to be in my life is just someone who's genuine.
mhm.
Um and someone who shows up for people whenever they need someone. I think like genuinely like one of my best qualities is like the type of friend that I am. And that's
Mm.
like I think something that like when I think about aspects of myself that I'm proud of, like that is one that I'm definitely very proud of.
I love that answer. And I feel like, yes, we work together, quote unquote, but I feel like so many of our conversations have felt like just like a friend chat. Like, I feel like I know so much more about you, whether it was this or just the times we get to chat together. So, without someone who is around
We're
you
always
like all the
yelling.
day, yes, like I'm like, I like see it on my calendar. I'm like, great, I get to talk to Taylor today. Like, what are we going to talk about? It's like the last time crock pots. Like, you never know what we're going to come up with. So, I think I could testify to the fact that you are someone who's just really genuine and easy to talk to.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, last question, and this one's a little bit heavier or deeper, but as you think about being bold and you think about the future, what type of legacy do you want to leave?
Such a good question. And I know you kind of like alluded that you would ask this. And if I was smart, I probably would have thought of a good answer. I did not. So I think I will say, just based on like how I kind of reflected for our conversation today, is like I want to do things that like are outside of my comfort zone and like push the boundaries a little bit of
Mm,
like who I am, or like even like the box that I've put myself in, because we all do it. But even just like setting like out of the box goals for myself, like running a marathon, or
mm,
taking a solo trip just because, or yeah, like speaking out about something, like just things that I think I have always told myself, like, oh, that's not me, or like I'm a homebody, or like
mm,
I'm someone who's like quiet and shy and like blah blah blah. So like I don't do those things, but I think something that I want to like carry forward, and something that I think I would like to make a part of my legacy, because like right now my legacy is like, oh, I'm a good friend or like whatever, and I
mhm,
think I want to like expand it, and I want to be someone who challenges herself and who puts herself in new situations to grow and flourish. And yeah, I think that's kind of what, again, as a result of just thinking about what I have done in my life and what I would want to do. Like, I want to kind of do more of those things, especially because,
mm.
like, I mean, at least when I think about my life and the direction I'm going in right now, like speaking very transparently, I don't know if like kids are in my
Sure.
future. Not a no, but it's not like a 100% yes. And so I
Mhm,
think I want to do the things that like push myself and challenge myself and like allow me to like live my life to the absolute fullest before obviously taking my life in a particular direction or not.
mhm,
So that's like what I'm
mm.
going to take from this and like look forward as I think about this next year or so of my life, for sure.
I love that answer, and I am so excited just to watch and to be able to have further conversations in the future about what that ends up looking like for you. And if you need a solo trip, feel free to come to Minnesota.
I would
I
love to go to
will
Minnesota.
show you around and we will just explore. Maybe don't come in the winter, but in the summer it's
Right.
beautiful here, and I can show you the amazing parts of Minnesota in the summer. So, just saying.
I've heard great things. I have a very good friend who's from Minnesota, and
Hmm.
he raves about Minnesota
Yep.
and Minnesota in the summertime. So I would not be surprised if a trip to Minnesota is on the horizons for
Great.
me. And
Well, you've got a place to stay. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Taylor. This conversation was really beautiful, and I know I will be thinking about it even after we log off today, and just so much appreciate you sharing your story, the vulnerability that it took to do that. And I'm excited for people to hear it because I think it's going to be really meaningful.
Thank you. I'm excited and grateful for the conversation today and for even giving me the opportunity to be a part of this. Like, I feel like if somebody were to ask me, like, what's something bold that you've done, like, this is going to be my new answer for
Hey,
sure.
I love that. That's amazing. Well, hey, if I can provide that space, I have checked something off of my purpose list today of doing that. So thank you again, Taylor, and thanks to all of our listeners. We'll catch you on the next episode.